Thank you, Caroline, for joining us here at SAT Media today. It is truly a pleasure having you here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And one thing that I'm curious is how you ended up becoming a lieutenant governor candidate.
Well, that's a good question. I often ask myself, I was very fortunate. Fortunate to have crossed paths with Paul. We have mutual acquaintances, familiar with the work that we've done in government, and we just really hit it off. We have the same values, we have the same way of wanting to lead, we have the same approach. We're both engineers by degree, we're problem solvers by nature, so we really are looking to unite people and work together with varied views. So the fact that we just really got along and wanted to accomplish the same things is why it worked so well. So I was really fortunate that he trusted in me and asked me to be his running mate.
Very good. So it's a very basic and easy process. So I have prepared about 20 questions for you. And it's the same questions that I asked Paul, and same of the questions I'm going to ask other governor candidates as well. So you ready to get started?
I am ready.
All right. So the first one is the big glaring one, and that's the pension fund. Currently, our pension fund stands at about $130 billion, down from $144 billion because of investment returns. Percentage-wise, it went from 46.5% unfunded to 39%. In the current economic environment, we can't expect positive returns every time. What can be done to manage the unfunded pensions outside of bankruptcy?
Well, this is probably Paul's wheelhouse more than mine, I will say, but I do have some basic thoughts, and first was address it, tackle it on. We've been for years and years talking about this, and no one's ever actually done a whole lot about it. So if we started working together to find solutions and implement those solutions, if we would have done that when this first became a conversation, decades ago, we wouldn't be sitting in this situation right now.
Right.
So, that's one thing, is actually address it. Just supplementing with the relief dollars that are out there right now is not a long-term solution. It's just shifting money around and shifting money that could be used for other things. So that's definitely not the solution. I can't get the exact answer because Paul will probably have a better one at that. We will be coming out with some suggestions, but really just taking the lead and being the one to have the solution and get others to believe in it and actually implement it.
One of the solutions that our current governor seems to have in place is when faced with an issue of funding things, he just raises taxes. Do you think that's a logical option with the pension fund?
Absolutely not. We don't have a revenue problem, and I'm sure Paul has said this. We have a spending problem.
Right.
And just better efficiencies and finding actual solutions rather than just having that solution of raising taxes. And really understanding the average individual within this state. And we need to start electing people that are the average residents of Illinois, those that understand those issues, and then can make it personal to them. And when you raise taxes, it affects families, and that's not the solution to do it.
Right. We'll switch directions a little bit.
Okay.
And parental notification ends for teens seeking abortions. In December 2021, Governor Pritzker signed a bill ending the state's last pro-life law by allowing minor girls to obtain an abortion without their parents' knowledge. Given other states trending to a more conservative view with heartbeat laws, what should be done with Illinois on this front?
First of all, repealing that and allowing for parental notification. I have a daughter who now is beyond the age, she's 18 now, but I my heart aches when I hear this, and sorry about that. But if my child can't go to the school nurse and get an aspirin without my permission, yet they can go and get a medical procedure without my permission at any age, I just have no words for that. So that would be, and that's not a partisan issue at all. That's a parents' rights issue, and parents need to know what's going on in their children's lives and be part of those decisions.
Yeah, actually, there's been a lot of lack of parent involvement with anything, and actually, it seems like it perturbs them more than anything, especially when you look at the school systems, the education systems, and what's happening there.
And you're absolutely right. I don't, as a parent of 3 children, I don't get it. And I'm a very involved parent, very passionate about my children and their lives, and and I understand, everyone is not as fortunate as our family is to have a very involved family, but there needs to be parents involved or some sort of parental guidance involved in everyone's lives. And we need to have those conversations, and we need to be making those decisions for ourselves.
This won't apply to you as much as, but in the event, if there was a heartbeat bill that came across the desk as governor, should that be something that should be supported, or something that should be looked against?
You're right. It probably is not so much as Paul's.
Exactly.
And so the things that I think absolutely first and foremost need to be addressed are, as you said, parental notification, state funding. You see the graphics of how many abortions are in the state of Illinois versus our surrounding states, and it is just shocking. Seeing why is that, and I think those are the 2 reasons why. Because people from other states can come here, and the state is funding that. And those are the issues that really need to start driving down those numbers. So focusing on how do we lower those numbers and make it not an option really is the key. And those are areas that you can come together on, regardless of what side of the aisle you may be on.
Right. Let's take a look at election integrity. Of course, we're not going to mention any particular years or any level of election, but I just want to take a look at it. With the general impression from bipartisan polls that elections have been compromised in recent years across the country, what should be done in Illinois to solidify election integrity in our state?
First, I think it's brought to the forefront, and this has been going on. Election integrity has been really jeopardized for ever, really. And I never realized, until I started running for office, that you are kind of at the hands of your county clerks. Right. And I actually, there was a study on COVID and the effects of the elections prior to that, and it was really eye-opening because of the fact that, and it was a professor from U of I was doing it, and it's really interesting if you ever get the opportunity to watch it. It was on how COVID's affecting us, and he predicted this because it goes back to the hanging Chad, how many years ago, that it has always been an issue. It's always been, but it's a matter of what's going to be the poster child for it that year. And most people didn't realize, because it really didn't have a huge effect. The outcome was kind of one that was predicted, but when the outcomes start getting affected and take a turn that people didn't anticipate, then it started to be eye-opening. And so it really goes down to, who do we elect? And the county clerk was an office that had a huge amount of responsibility, yet people really didn't research their county clerk. I didn't even realize that, you knew they were in charge of the elections, and you just assumed it was a process that worked. But there's a lot, and this professor talks about, a lot of it is in control of how that individual county clerk handles those elections. And there's anomalies, there's issues, there's, areas that happen all the time It's just a matter of what impact do they have. So electing good quality county clerks into office, trusting them that they have high integrity and will be executing the election process in a very trustworthy manner is critical. And I think we'll see it this cycle by having more county clerks stepping up to run, which is great. I mean, it's always to get people to run in the process and have those issues discussed. It's always of value. So that's really paying attention to who you're electing and the job and the tasks that they're responsible for. I mean, it's huge, and people didn't really realize how important that duty is.
Seems like over the years, a lot of people got complacent with our own democratic system.
Yeah.
And the electoral system suffered. But we do have a model in place now where people do get involved, and look what happened in Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. See, I think we're going to see totally different outcomes, once people start educating themselves and understanding. And it's great. I always feel, ask away, educate yourself. I feel like if we looked at resumes and applications, we would have a whole different outcome a lot of times. So,
right.
I'm always all about educating and researching and getting the right people.
In the business world, it is a regular practice to audit your books annually, especially among larger corporations that might have public holdings. Would you support forensic audits for elections, for federal, state, and local elections in the state of Illinois?
I have no problem with transparency. I'm open. I'm an open book personally. I'm an open book politically, voting record. Our information on our website, McHenry County, we have really high transparency up there. We're actually talking about putting our books online even, and people can, and I know in the state they've gotten better about that, but it's public information. So I have no problem with elections and doing an audit on them, because it should be transparent. It's the people, and but not looking at individual votes, but making sure that the votes are tallied correctly and processes are in place properly, if that's what you're referring to. So,
yes. So obviously everybody it's a private. Your vote is your vote,
right? And
everybody, you have that issue where you place the vote and you always wonder,
where is it going?
is it really going? And you joke about it, but over maybe the past 20 years even, it's not really a joke anymore.
No, yeah. Well, especially in some of the things we've heard over this last election cycle, absolutely. And I don't know. I haven't heard any solutions proposed as far as, because you don't really want to track people's votes and exactly how they voted. So that's a challenge. But being able to account for ballots that should be there, it should really match up.
Right.
I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't. And if it doesn't, then it should be looked into for sure.
Right. In looking at the process of voting, what would you push for in terms of method of voting? Continued the use of mixed paper ballots and machines, or just flat paper ballots?
I guess I haven't really thought about that one. I like having the option. I mean, I'm fine with as long as the systems are tested and working. I know some people prefer the paper, and I know some people that prefer the touch screens. We have both up in McHenry County, and I think giving people a choice of what they're more comfortable with is always a good thing, because we've had issues with both. And I feel like when you have issues with one, you can always go to the other. Machines have been down, so then they go to paper. But if you have no way of counting or tallying the paper, and you can only go by machine, then there's been polls that have been down because of that. So I think having both options is nice, because it makes people more confident in their vote is actually being counted.
So do you support voter ID?
I have no problem with voter ID. There has to be some way of verifying that the individual that is going to vote is that person. And I voluntarily will show my ID when I go. I find it easier. Everyone that is a voter should have an ID.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't understand the argument, I guess.
Yeah, the other side seems to believe that it's somehow racial or some kind of intent is behind it to limit people's access.
Yeah, and I don't really fully understand the argument. And it's the same with, and I don't know if it's one of your questions, but the same with mail-in. You know, I feel like people have the option to mail in. I don't understand why everyone needs to get a ballot or everyone needs to be on that list, or we need to provide more mail-in boxes when everyone can put it in their own mailbox.
Exactly.
And you can also, you have like a month ahead of the election to go vote at a location, and then you have that's the early voting, then you have early voting, then you have day of voting, and then you have mail-in voting still. So why I don't get the whole suppression argument.
Right.
I don't see we are more accessible. Our voting is more accessible than it has ever been. And we're forgetting the fact that we are so fortunate in this country to be able to have that vote, that we should want to go out and vote, regardless of what method we choose to use. If it's mail-in, if you're not mobile or can't make it or ill or whatever, you'll know. If you have to vote early, or if you have to vote on the weekends, you can even vote on the weekends now. There is so much access to voting, and it should be our privilege to go and vote. That people should find any one of those. So I guess I haven't really seen a valid argument.
Right. Yeah, even to the point of I've always looked forward to voting day.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now you really have to run in there even vote early to capture your own ballot. And but I've even been supportive of like a national holiday for voting. Why can't we all get off and vote and enjoy the day?
Yeah, well, I think they've changed to that to some extent for state workers
Exactly.
and stuff. But it should be a bigger deal than it is, for sure. And early voting has really changed that election day itself. But yeah, I'm with you. I still like to go on that day, although I did get a little nervous the last time because you're like, well, what if I get COVID and I can't go in? So I'm like, I better go vote early. But then, I still walked to the polls that day just to see who was there because you want to make sure.
I voted early too.
Yeah, like you want to just feel like at least you could because you didn't want to be in quarantine. But but there's plenty of opportunity these days to vote.
Yes. So even though it's not really voting integrity. Looking at elected officials, do you support term limits for elected officials?
And it depends on the office as to what term, I guess it would be, because there is some validity in historical knowledge and experience. But there is also the concern on those leadership roles in particular of being there too long. And having too much power, and definitely limiting, especially leadership roles, the higher, like how the president has it, and the governor, even to some extent, the General Assembly.
Right.
I would be in support of. I don't know exactly the limitations that I'd be comfortable with because you have to balance the historical knowledge experience and to just too much time, because people do get complacent when they're in a position for too long. They just have their way of doing it and they are not necessarily open to new ways, and that becomes problematic.
When the Founding Fathers set up our government, in a sense, I don't think they considered having people look at it as a career.
Right.
And in many senses, especially I think the federal government, or state government as well. Locally, I don't think that that's much of an issue, perhaps, but it's such an issue now.
Well, because that probably has to do with compensation.
Yes.
You know, you get to the federal level or even the state level, they're compensated way more than your city council members or, you know, county board or township officials.
Right.
So, or, you know, the leadership roles are really the ones, too, that get that higher compensation. So, you know, those are the roles that can be abused at times.
Yes. Take a little bit of a shift here. We're going to go into energy. So with the push from the Biden administration and radical progressive interests, a major platform for the side is to increase green energy. How would you handle the energy situation with the state of Illinois, or how should it be handled?
So actually in McHenry County, this has been a big issue for us. We just had a large solar farm that got approved up in McHenry County. And the side of it that is really appealing is the business side of it. That you have a lot of businesses that are committing themselves to lessen their footprint. And so we need to be able to accommodate their goals. So really I think it needs to be driven from the business economic standpoint, not just forced onto people for a title of a green state or something. You know, it really needs to have a holistic approach. And this solar project actually did do that. They met with all the different groups and organizations, were able to work together and able to address everyone's concerns. And we need to continue to do that. And it is the way that renewable energy is the way, there is the way of the future. If not, by us personally, it's by businesses driving it. I think Amazon is one of them. We've gotten several Amazon warehouses that have come out to our county. And you need to be able to provide for them what they need in order to come to your community. So being supportive of that and being able to work with the business community to further grow your economy is where the focus should be. And then working with other groups to make it happen.
Seems like a lot of, like China and Europe, even though they talk a lot of green, they're leading the way in increasing or producing new manufacturing for coal plants and natural gas plants and even nuclear, especially in Europe now. There's been a lot of a push for that, but Illinois seems to be going in the opposite direction. Is that concerning?
Yeah, there needs to be a balance. I mean, you can't just have one source. You need to be able to find that balance. And like I said, really driven by the business industries and what their needs are and fulfilling those varied needs. So there's a balance that we need to reach.
Right.
And we're not quite there
yet.
But we definitely need to consider all sides of that issue and have those conversations to see what the different industries need in order to grow. The biggest piece is growing our economy for so many reasons. And, property taxes are one of them and one of the biggest ones. If we can grow that economy, you have jobs here, people move back here, and theoretically then your property taxes get lowered.
Theoretically.
Yeah, I say that because as long as they're not raising or, spending more money, it should happen. The more people you have here, if you have that same pot, mathematically it should work out that it's less.
Right.
So you got to keep that number, though, the same or lower it in order to do that. You can't keep raising that. We have to offer a wide range of resources for that.
Okay. The losses in Illinois. With the massive amounts of population running from Illinois the past couple of years, and the number of corporations and manufacturing fleeing as well to more business-friendly environments, what would you do as Lieutenant Governor to help counter that action? This
is a great question because there are a lot of different areas to be addressed in this. I actually did a demographic task force years ago when it first started declining. I shouldn't say that because but this was probably 6 years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and found the reasons why people are leaving Illinois. And some we can do stuff about, some we can't. Like weather, we can't do anything about. But you can highlight the great weather that we do have in here and the resources we have in Illinois to, to hike or to come and see snow, and we can highlight some of those. But really, people leave for family, which I'll get back to in a second. People leave for jobs. So number one is we need to get businesses back here. We need to help by making it a business-friendly environment, be it providing energy sources that they need, resources that the businesses would need, the restrictions that we have, eliminating restrictions on them being able to grow, maybe some, if those are incentives or some sort of incentives, it doesn't always need to be monetary. It could be in the way of attracting them in location-wise or where they can build. So getting businesses back here, they'll bring their employees here, which will then in turn increase the economies in those areas that they come back to. So then getting back to the family piece, really one of the fundamental issues we're having is kids are leaving and they're going to colleges in other states, and then they stay in those areas because that's where they're finding their jobs, or they're setting in that community, or that's where their friends are staying. So we really need to focus on keeping kids here in the state of Illinois. And I'm fortunate that my oldest he goes to U of I, so my husband and I went. So we're happy that he decided to stay here in Illinois. But that's rare. I mean, there's maybe a few more these days that are doing it, but most of the kids were going to Alabama, Missouri, Arizona. And why? Because they're offering them incentives there. They're giving them in-state tuition, or they're giving them some type of monetary compensation. We don't do that here in Illinois. In fact, it could be so little as, I was an Illinois State Scholar. My son was an Illinois State Scholar. I can't remember exactly, 30 some years ago, but I think it was like $1,000 scholarship that you could use at an Illinois school, which is great. I mean, to any kid, $1,000 scholarship to use at a school is great. My son got a letter that said, although this comes with no monetary donation, this is a great accomplishment. It's like, okay, thanks for the piece of paper. And why would he want to stay in an Illinois school then versus going to another school that's offering him a scholarship? Well, he did it because it's near and dear to us. But we need to give them an incentive to stay here in Illinois, because then that's where they're going to want to find their jobs. That's where they're going to meet their friends. That's where their friends are going to want to stay. And then in turn, that's where our population is going to continue to grow. But as long as we can't be competitive with these out-of-state schools, they're going to keep fleeing the state.
Yeah, and we're at a net population loss for the state of Illinois. And I think if you look at the whole Midwest region, we're the only state that's lost population.
Because all the Illinois residents are staying close to home, which is the other part of it. They're staying close to their family that remains here in Illinois, but they're going to Wisconsin or to Indiana. They're going to the surrounding, or Ohio, I think their population's even growing.
Yes.
So they're going to those surrounding states because they're still within that driving distance of their family that stayed here in Illinois. We want to bring them back home. I mean, we want to keep the kids here and bring the other family members back home.
Let's see, there are 15 states that levy either no income tax or a hybrid income tax just on investment income and interest. These states have had success attracting workers and industry to their states. Would you support such an effort in Illinois?
I think the way Illinois taxes in general really needs an overhaul. Placing the burden on property taxes for things like your school system, it's just not, it's not sustainable. So I don't have that exact solution right now, but it definitely is an area that affects so much in our lives, and it really is the reason that we're seeing the population loss, because the property taxes, and we need to take that holistic approach of all the taxes, and then the best way to implement them.
Right.
And I don't, like I said, I don't have that solution at this moment because it is a really complex, it's kind of like a restart. It really is a restart of the whole thing that we need to look at it in a different way.
In the state of Illinois, there is no right to work law. The union security clause should still be intact, though there are contractual exceptions, with many manufacturers looking at states with a former right to work legislation. Would you support that action or not?
The right to work?
Yeah.
In Illinois, I think we need to focus on more working through why our rates are so high and why the unions have gotten to this point and why the pensions in particular have gotten to this point. And we need to have those conversations on the solutions addressing the actual core issue. I don't think, just saying we're right to work is going to solve that problem. So we really need to figure out what's going to solve that problem. How do we reduce the burden on pensions? Can you do buyouts? Do you allow people, to take it now and then relieve that off of the pension system? So those are the core solutions rather than just going straight to right to work. I mean, those are actually solving problems, not just talking. Mm-hmm. So,
in November 2022, the people of the state of Illinois will be voting on an amendment to the Constitution that will permanently ban any right to work legislation. Though those states with right to work legislation fare better economically than those who don't, would you support, and it's listed as House Joint Resolution Constitutional Amendment 34. Would you support that?
No, I think that, as I said, we need to get at the core of the problem, and I'm not taking it off the table as far as part of the solution, but we really need to address what the problem is. And the problem right now is the pensions are out of control and workers' comp prices are out of control, and we're really not competitive in those areas in our surrounding states in particular. So we need to become more competitive in those areas first before we need to have conversations that are blanket conversations.
Do you think Illinois has done an adequate job trying to lure industry and manufacturing into the state, especially the last decade?
Well, since we just had that conversation about how we need to grow our business economy, I would say not. Losing the population, I think, is a direct correlation of that. Our population.
It's an asset.
It would, absolutely be, for sure.
Healthcare Right of Conscience Act. In November 2021, J.B. Pritzker signed Senate Bill 1169. In the law, basically bypassing the judicial branch of government and limiting the people of Illinois to handle their own health care. As governor or lieutenant governor, how would you handle this perceived overstep by the executive branch?
Part of our platform, if you want, is trusting people to make decisions for themselves, trusting that people know what is best for them. As healthcare falls into that, any kind of parental issues, education, whatever you want it to be, fall under that. We trust the individuals to make the decisions for themselves.
And let's move into immigration. With the amount of human trafficking, drug smuggling, and other issues at the southern border, Illinois passed the Illinois Way Forward Act, restricting how law enforcement in the state would collaborate with federal immigration agents. Also, the act closes all detention centers in Illinois. As governor or lieutenant governor, what would you or should be done in respect to that act?
Well, this is an interesting one because up in McHenry County, we actually had a ICE detention program. So we had voted to continue with that as a board, and we supported the continuation of supporting our federal government in implementing the laws. The laws.
The laws.
And I support the law in the laws that we have in this country. I support legal immigration. I think, everyone has the American dream, and I think that's great if they can go through the process. And I think it's a detriment to those, or disrespectful to those that really have, if we're now just ignoring the laws in this country. So we actually, in McHenry County, took quite a hit to our budget from it too. And I don't want to just equate it to budget, but it was something that we should have been able to have more control over. But they put it down onto us that we had to cancel that program. And we had $7 or $8 million, which was on the low end even, in our budget. So now we had to find where do we make up that $7 or $8 million, and in a program we were just supporting our federal government on, that was just supporting the laws of this country. I mean, that's so. Obviously, I'm on record for supporting the contract we had with the ICE detention, and I think that in the McHenry County State's Attorney has a lawsuit that they filed against Illinois, and it's being appealed now. To allow us to continue to do that. So,
I find it odd that a lot of immigrants that have come here legally, are truly against, even more so than citizens who were born here, and are against illegal immigration.
Yeah.
And it's been a heavily politicized, unfortunately, area of our government.
And I agree. I've seen the same thing when I'm out campaigning, and people say, I came here and I did it, and it worked hard, and it took me years, but I did it, and I did it legally, and that's great. Great. That I think that diverse population in our country is wonderful. I mean, learning from others that have had all these different life experiences is great and only makes us stronger. But when people start breaking laws, and I'm a kind of a law and order type of person, so that's a different path. And there could be work at the federal level for sure on immigration laws, and that's out of our scope. But supporting the federal government is definitely, something that I think we should be doing.
Let's take a look at education. And actually, we'll just talk about something that happened today, or actually it was yesterday, where a downstate judge halted the mask mandates in 170 school districts. What does that mean for the people of Illinois, for the kids?
Well, hopefully the kids will have a choice now of what they want to do, which would be great, because this one is very near and dear to me. COVID in general has been our family's been hit hard from a lack of socialization, from the masking, and I mean, personally as a parent, my son wanted to get vaccinated. He was all about getting vaccinated because he didn't have to wear a mask at school. And then the next thing he's told, well, it doesn't matter. You have to wear a mask at school. So he's been all over the board. Like, what do I do? I'm doing what I'm doing the right thing. And now we keep adding these rules, and it's confusing for kids too to understand, like, why would they want to follow rules now? And so this will actually allow them to have some personal choices, which we were talking about, trusting them to make the decision that they feel is right for them. Whether it's their parents making that decision or the child themselves making that decision, it's up to the parent to allow the child to do that. Some kids struggle. I have asthma. My daughter has asthma. She passed out in school when she was wearing a mask. And so it allows them to meet their personal needs. Other kids have issues with expression. If they don't see somebody's expression, they have challenges learning, or if they can't see their lips move in school, they can't hear what they're saying. So I think this will be really, really life-changing for those children that have been struggling through this. And it'll let people have the choice of what best fits their personal need. And that's what we should be about, is, just let people, if they want to wear a mask, great. If they don't want to wear a mask, great. So I think it will help our education system, and it'll allow us to start moving forward through COVID, because kids have been struggling. And I think, the effects we haven't even seen yet, the effects of, we're seeing them, yes,
Sure.
but I think they're not near the peak of what we're going to see. And I personally feel like it's even going to be generations. I think this is going to affect them their entire life.
Sure.
We've had anxiety, depression.
Well, the amount of suicides have increased unbelievably.
Well, right, and that's even, that is incredibly life-changing for a family, and heartbreaking, and so just, I feel like at times things are preventable. But and we're not really even offering up the services for this. One of my passions is mental health, and how this has affected not only children but adults in our society, how the seclusion, the isolation, the lack of socialization, the lack of expressions, the lack of interaction. And for years now we're going on. And then the fear that we've placed in some of the kids or even adults about, you can't go out, or you can't interact, we're humans. Humans are social beings. That's what we thrive off of, is that social interaction. And now that lacking that for years, the impact that's going to have for someone's even entire life, we haven't even begun to see that.
In Illinois, has one of the highest property taxes in America. It also has an education distribution percentage near the top. As a result of this investment, Illinois schools rank near the bottom in skills testing and college entrance testing. What can be done to fix the very little return on investment?
School funding reform is a big part of that. We are end up putting community against community, even the way that we're funding schools, and putting it back on the local governments to have it in their control would be a start. They do to some extent, but it goes into your property taxes, and the state hasn't figured out a school funding formula where you're providing more equity amongst the school systems rather than competition. We shouldn't be competing with each other. We should be making a strong state from education. And school choice is part of that too,
Sure.
that, allowing people to choose what's best for their child. And
have the money follow the child.
Yeah. And I was sat in on something that a few states are doing it based on tax dollars, which I haven't seen that yet, but it's very intriguing. Rather than, it used to be proposed like the average cost of a student, which is not always a representative number, because the average cost actually takes into effect special services, which kids that choose school choice typically don't fall into that group. So they're usually on that lower end of the average. So if you do it by tax, that's actually more money directly paid. So that's an interesting thing to look at, is how if you take that money and they're able to use it how they see fit for their child, and then they can accommodate, they can actually have children that flourish. They can look at where are the strengths in this child, what are the needs of this child, and how do we bring out the best in that child. So we need to find a way where we can put those two together and actually fund it into what maximizes a child's potential, and not just what is the easiest way of doing it.
Right. Even though schools are not reaching even average standards, they are pushing through radical progressive policies such as the 1619 Project, inclusive of critical race theory, early sexualization of children, and gender misrepresentation narratives. How can the governor help reverse that trend?
And Paul probably would mention this as well.
He was all over it.
The administrative appointments, I'm guessing that he was on, which is absolutely the one thing that the governor can do. The biggest thing is, appoint to all those agencies that he gets. And so somebody that really starts focusing on, and as I have mentioned before, he and our math and science oriented, really focus on the subject matter and spending time, and it could be whatever, if it's English or history or what subject matter that those children really flourish in, and can benefit from to then make a better foundation for their adulthood rather than kind of opinions and perspectives. And I mean, that doesn't change. Math doesn't change. Science doesn't change. English doesn't, grammar doesn't change. You know, let's find the foundation. We're really about setting a foundation and a path for the children then to find their way in a way that they want to take. We aren't responsible for setting that way for them.
And was it, I think, when Trump was in office, he established the 1776 Project, which is like a counter proposal where civics and history and everything is taught to the children again. Would you be supportive of that?
I am really supportive of history. As much as I did not like history in school, history is the foundation of our future. We have to remember history, and so we don't repeat it. You have to understand things that went wrong. I always say to my kids, it's okay to make a mistake as long as you learn from it. And history, I don't want to say was a mistake, but it is full of mistakes. It's full of things that we can learn from. And we need to know what that is so we don't do it again. So we take a different path. So we find a different solution. You know, it's the mistakes of life, our history. It's how you then move forward from it that it is what makes the difference. And if we ignore all that, and if we don't know and learn from that past, how do you move forward in a better way? That's growth. And I encourage it within my own family. I now really appreciate it, as boring as I thought it was back then. You know, now as an adult, I see it completely different because I guess that's, you know, me learning from my history. So, yeah, I would absolutely support it.
Let's see. And we'll go to a more grim area. And this is something that's been around unfortunately, for decades, which is Chicago violence. With the continued violence on the south side of Chicago and Cook County hitting all-time highs over 1,000 murders this past year, what would you do as governor or lieutenant governor to help stop the violence and terror for families experiencing this?
Number one, we need to support our laws and our law enforcement. That we need to stop peeling back on our laws and actually enforce the laws that we have and support the law enforcement in order to enact those. And people will become aware. If you start having that presence and you start seeing that support of law enforcement and they feel that support, then you can restore that order. And outside of that right now, I mean, the criminal justice reform bill was a huge blow to, I think it's just the message, maybe there were parts in there that are valuable, but the message that it sent to law enforcement, I just think was not very well perceived. So I've always been very supportive of our law enforcement and whatever their needs are, and want them to know that the community appreciates them and we will support them in that. I highly value them, and I think we need to start sending that message more because we can work together. I'll give you an example. It's just the perception of that support. We don't want to take that away. And it goes back to mental health that I was talking about as well. I was meeting with our mental health board. We are fortunate in McHenry County to have a 708 mental health board, meeting with the head of that. And years ago, the sheriff and I sat down and we were having neighborhood disputes. We were talking about, he wanted a social worker for his department that could then deal with to de-escalate some type of neighborhood disputes. So we worked it out and he ended up getting a social worker, which the program's been going great. So much so that when the mental health board I was meeting with, they had an idea of, can we partner with the sheriff's department to provide that social services, the social work services. So we were able to meet them together where they were separately wanting the same thing, but they didn't want to overstep and think that the sheriff's office, they didn't want to take over the roles of the deputies. They wanted to partner with them. And so our Sheriff's Department has worked together with our Mental Health Board, and they are going to be officially launching a social work department. I think there's going to be 5 social workers that will be on duty 24/7. They are working then, the municipalities can buy into this program, and they will be available then to those municipalities that use this. We can work together, but the core of it was we were supporting our law enforcement. We were letting them know this was not taking over law enforcement duties. This was actually assisting them when they felt that it was needed for those neighborhoods disputes. So the recurring offenders, they were able to call in social workers when they saw that need. They're the first line of defense. They are the ones that need to come in and address the immediate issue. Then we can supplement that with these social workers and these social services to have the treatment, and any mental health that may be involved in there, or any services that those individuals would need to prevent those from reoccurring. So it's a great partnership, but we need to start looking together that we're all partners in this. We want safe communities, but we want long-term safe communities. So how do we support our officers in getting that? And then on the other thing, we've had if they have hostage situations, or they're able to bring those social workers in and actually support the officers themselves and provide them with the services that they may need to deal with those very draining, high-risk situations. So it's an excellent program that has gotten nothing but positive feedback. But it was a little hesitant at the beginning because you need to get that trust in them to know that you're not trying to devalue them in any way. It's actually quite the opposite. You're showing them support by providing them services that they can use to supplement, and they can focus on that immediate response that they need to.
So you mentioned you're a law and order candidate, basically. So what would your message be to, for example, the state's attorneys in Chicago or Cook County that don't prosecute? No, there's laws. I mean, there are laws. I am a rule follower, and to a fault. You know, it's not just laws that I follow. It is any rule. If I read a rule, I follow it, and I've lived my life like that. And it's not hard. I mean, it's challenging at times. Don't get me wrong. Like you come with conflict a lot, but I make the conscious decision to follow the rule or follow the law. So we just need to understand it's a decision people make when they're breaking laws or they're. So we need to enforce them, and that's plain and simple. I guess we stop ignoring them or stop weakening them. Or stop doing away with them because I don't know. I'm not that familiar, I guess, with the numbers and why they're doing some of these decisions, but we've gotten to a very extreme point, and it's pretty concerning. So, in reading through the Constitution, I have yet to find language in support of the FOID card. Do you support the removal of this card for the citizens of Illinois?
Not sure the whole benefit of it right now, especially with all the issues that we've had of late and the delays, and then you're actually jeopardizing the protection of some people, or you're causing them to, how we were just talking about law and order, maybe they're breaking the law that the way that they're acquiring because of the delay in the government. So I feel like until the state really gets their act together too, and has a good system, how can you have a system that's only harmful or jeopardizing people?
So you consider the FOID card something that's harmful to protection of people?
Right now it is because of, I don't know if the processing's gotten any better, but I know over the last, 2 years, it's, I've gotten even calls over it saying, they can't get a FOID card or there's a delay. And I know the state representatives have been getting them left and right. So I don't know if they've worked through that issue or not. But it's just, it hasn't been working. And other states I always look. My family's in Georgia, and there you can do whatever you want, pretty much.
Well, I think they just became a constitutional carry state, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure on that.
Yeah.
Maybe, but yeah, it's.
I know there were 2 added just recently, and I thought Georgia was one of them.
It may be, and yeah, I go there. I feel safe, and everyone there feels, it's.
Well, that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, so it just, I guess I would have to see more of the arguments because, again, I don't see both sides right now.
Right. So, I don't know if you have any other issues you'd like to bring up. My questions are complete.
Oh.
So I don't know if there's a special project or anything you'd like to bring up right now.
Sure. If you don't, I'll
Sure.
give you a little bit of my background.
Sure.
So I currently vice chair the McHenry County Board. I'm from Crystal Lake. I sat on the Crystal Lake City Council prior to that. I also am the McHenry County representative and vice chair of the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, which is the regional planning organization for the city of Chicago, Cook County, and the Collier counties. And I also headed a township task force. So I have been in public service and local government for over 20 years.
Oh, okay.
And then that paired with Paul's end of more the state and federal level, we have every level of government covered. And that really is something that no other pairing has. And in particular, in local government, I have done an extensive amount of work in government efficiencies and shared services. And I sat on a committee for a couple of years, which we were talking about municipal capacity and how municipalities will be able to survive even moving forward. And one of the interesting things on there is that the state of Illinois and the regulations that the state has or the restrictions it places on local government is really a huge part of the problem as to why we can't be more efficient. So really tightening up those ends, that's kind of a passion of mine, finding government efficiencies. In McHenry County, we've done it on a small scale as I sit on CMAP that I mentioned. We were talking about this, and McHenry County was already working with a lot of the municipalities to inventory services. So we then, I encouraged them to apply for a grant, for a local technical assistance grant from CMAP to do shared services and see where we could go with it. And we have a shared service coordinator there now who has met with every local government entity in McHenry County and things on like contract procurements, different contract work, or we have a new training facility for the Sheriff's Department's putting a new training facility where everyone in the county can use that facility. Just partnering with others, municipalities, other townships, the police departments, fire departments, everyone now has a network to partner together. I would love to see this on a larger scale, like throughout the entire state. It's working initially there's some pushback because talking about relationships before, there's that level of trust that people need to understand. You're not coming in to tell them how to do it. You're not coming in to take over anything. You're coming in to work together. And that's really key here, that we are about finding ways for us to work together, finding issues that unite us, not divide us. Understanding that we all have the same end goal in mind. We all want lower property taxes. We all want to raise our families and provide, the best education and services for our families and our children. And ultimately, I think we'd all really like an Illinois that we want to live in and thrive in. And so how do we get there? We get there by working together. We don't get there by playing political ping pong back and forth on extremes. We get there by finding issues that we can come together on. And Paul and I, and I'm sure he's mentioned, we're running on parents' rights, parental rights, and providing the parents the right to make decisions for their children. And safety and security, we touched on that, supporting our law enforcement. And then trust. I mean, ultimately, who we trust the people to make decisions for themselves, and who do they want to trust to have them implement those policies. And we want to prove that we can be trusted, and we have the records to show it, and we have the experience that is unmatched, and we're just excited for the opportunity to really prove to the people that we should be trusted.
Very good. So Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining me today at SET Media, and it was a pleasure to meet you and talk with you.
Thank you very much. It was great being here.
Yes, good luck.
Thank you.